morning, everybody. Thanks, Dr. Batra and Business World for inviting me to be part of this wonderful session. Before I speak about water credits as a concept, I think most of us are familiar with what carbon credits as a concept has done to awareness about global warming, the amount of environmental degradation that happens when you release more carbon, and people have become conscious over a period of time. It has also created a kind of a market which has been stable, and there are incidentally lots of organizations which are actually making money out of this entire carbon credit initiative. Now, where does the concept of water credit starts? India has possibly now the largest population, but hardly 4% of the world's groundwater. And we are the largest extractor of groundwater globally, and you can see those numbers. It is estimated that in the last 70 years, we have managed to deplete the groundwater by almost 1/4. And you can see parts of the country which are deeply in the red in terms of groundwater availability. That means the replenishment through monsoon is not compensating for what you are taking out. And there are states like Punjab which have moved to more rain or water intensive crops like paddy, and in the process is depleting at a rate of close to 85% plus in terms of the rainfall versus the output you take out. So you can imagine what will happen that you are actually borrowing from the future. You can see that if you continue to extract water at the rate you are doing, I think you will have a serious trouble over the next 2 decades, not too far away, just 20 years ahead. But to put things in context, I think we must understand that the largest component of groundwater extraction happens naturally for agricultural purposes. Out of the 85%, possibly about 4 to 5% also happens through evaporation in terms of the water bodies and the canals which feed agricultural land. Industry accounts for about 8%. Now, I represent Bisleri, the largest water brand serving consumers for the last 55 years now. We have been plastic neutral and water positive. That means we actually recycle more plastic than we put into the market, and we replenish more water than we extract from the ground. And I will show you what we do in both these areas. Now, particularly on plastic, since Dr. Batra spoke about sustainability and the need for sustainability education to bring or educate young minds, along with Center for Environment Education, Mr. Karthikeya Sarabhai and team, we have actually developed and released a book for schools called Towards Responsible Use of Plastic, released in January this year. Since it's a complex subject, we took care as a marketing company to ensure it is well illustrated. And not only this, we are printing this in 9 languages, and we are also making small modules of this, because this will work as a reference point. But when the teacher is going to talk to the students, the message needs to be consistent across the country. So those are being made, and I think the language editions are underway. This book in English is already released, and we have shared it with the ministry and the education departments. The small modules which will enable the teachers, particularly under the new educational policy, in the 10th standard, there is a certain number of hours defined for environmental education, 120 hours to be specific. I think this will go a long way in terms of educating people about responsible use of plastic. Plastic as a material is not bad. It's a way we use it, and mindlessly discard it, what is causing the problem. Now, this is the kind of work which you do on water. We have some of the best efficiencies, water efficiencies in terms of conversion. And just to share with you, compared to 2021-22 as a baseline, in 5 months of this year, we have saved water to an extent of 30 million cartons of Bisleri. And that I think is a significant saving for a 5-month period. So there's a lot of effort to going in terms of ensuring that every facility, we have close to 150 facilities across the country, processes water in the most efficient manner that's possible. Not only that, that's a lake or a water body in our plant in Bangalore. We ensure the surface runoff water is also captured. And some of those which you see on this side of the screen is close by, near Sahibabad and that area, where close to our watershed of the plant, we ensure the water bodies are rebuilt, restored. And what you see on the left side is our work in the rural, particularly in Western Maharashtra and Gujarat, where we restore check dams. And you can see the amount of water that we conserve, feeding almost about 50,000 rural families, ensuring they're able to do multiple crops in a year, improve their livelihood. And that's a lake which we have restored in Chennai, and another one at an altitude of 11,500 feet in Nubra Valley in Leh, Ladakh. That was last year, and this is just got inaugurated by Mr. Ganesh, who is my colleague, just about 4 days back in the same area. So a large number of villages in Leh, Ladakh now has water available for drinking and for cultivation. Now, the government of India in 2023 outlined under the Prime Minister's scheme of Mission LIFE, Lifestyle for Environment, a scheme to incentivize environment-friendly behavior under these 7 categories, where the behavior is supposed to be rewarded, and the government is going to set up platforms where the rewards could be traded similar to carbon credits. And you can see that water is the second item in the list of 7. So for conservation, water efficiency, treatment and reuse of wastewater, there will be credits for individuals, collectives or cooperatives and organizations, which can then be traded to people who are possibly on the wrong side of water consumption. But there's a challenge, like any green credit, which when you make, it needs to be based on the equivalence of resource requirement. Saving water in a high monsoon state like Kerala versus when you save in Rajasthan, it needs to have a value compensation, which is different. So we said as an organization, in fact, I remember when I came into Bisleri 6 years ago, our chairman used to have this conversation that it's time we start thinking about water credits. And I thought that was far-fetched at that point in time. And then COVID came in 20, so 21 end I prepared a paper for him, understanding carbon credits in the first place, and then said, as an organization, I don't think it's possible for us to put forward. We don't have the intellectual ability to understand this. So we need to involve a partner who understands the academic part of it, and we need to involve the water ministry and people like that. Now, when we try to study the comparison between carbon credits and water credits, if you were to put them in similar platforms, carbon is universal. You release fumes here, it will impact even a guy sitting in Angola. But water is very localized. When I have a flood, somebody has a flood in Assam, the guy sitting in Delhi is not really bothered because it's not impacting him. So water has got a local presence. It has also got a value or a quality which is changing to monsoons and availability. And then even if when you create the market, The carbon credit market is very well established under the California cap and trade and also the EU emission trade program. Water credits incidentally are happening in 3 of the countries, China, Kenya and Morocco in some crude manner. There again they had problems because in the initial investment that goes in, somebody had to fund. So the downstream public and private beneficiaries created an investment fund to compensate the farmers for the initial losses they will suffer in the period. The Indian regulations on water, we studied it in depth. It's not uniform. There are 19 states with Central Groundwater Authority and rest of the states manage their own affairs. So a uniformity of practice and a regulatory common platform mechanism need to evolve. I think water also has a social aspect related to it. I think that's important for policymakers and government and even for all of us to understand. Equally, when there is a deprivation potential, if I am setting up a high water consuming activity, I spoke about people converting from gehu to rice in Punjab, or somebody going and irresponsibly setting up a high water consuming industry in a water deprived area, there needs to be a debit factor. So what I call it as the water deprivation potential. Equally, if my business is generating pollutant and requires effluent treatment, there has to be a pollution deprivation potential which needs to be factored. And if the organization or the collective is doing something good, equally there has to be a water conservation positive that need to be added. So this is a study which we did, and it was a 1-year study, started in October 22, well in time for Prime Minister's announcement which happened in August 23. And we published this report in the month of May 24. And you can see the 4 areas around which the study is. One is about national and international understanding of water trading, water credits, the fiscal instruments. And we said if there are multiple factors impacting something like water at a localized level, we need to have an impact adjustment of a water footprint. And then we said, let us try and experiment these principles in 2 of our own factories, understand how different are they, and then create a toolkit which any company then can adopt. And that's what we have done. But let me first take you to a watershed. What is a watershed? It's basically an area or a terrain where water flows through one way. So which means anything in that terrain, you need to look at it impacting the activity out here. And obviously we use some of the best tools that are available today to define the watershed and the micro watershed, which we did. We also went through the concepts of water audit, which is fundamentally about understanding how efficient are you as an organization in managing water. The processes, reducing water wastage, the operational wastage, and your resilience to a water shortage situation. Virtual water is about the total water consumption, because this is one debate which we had. Shouldn't we be accountable for just what happens within our fence? We are very efficient. I told you we have just saved 30 million cartons of Bisleri water equivalent in 5 months of the year. But then we said, no, as an organization, we need to be accountable end to end, which means right from the raw materials used for packaging my products to the transportation that involves my product reaching to the consumer, I must capture what is the water. And that is what we call as the virtual water footprint. So if I am actually using any organic material, then the plant which picks up that soil water, green water as we call it, and the surface water if I am using, and you can see the gray water if I am using ETP in the production process, then the effluent treatment related gray water, or the water which I would release after treatment. All that I need to account. And we must look at ultimately a compensatory mechanism which I said about deprivation, pollution, and also the conservation. So if I were to put it in a simple grid, this is how it is. The operational water footprint, the supply chain water footprint, overheads including the water that is used in the toilet in the factory, what happens in the canteen, and the supply chain water footprint ahead. We took only energy, not really about warehouses, because very difficult it became for us to manage that. So these were the two factories which we took. One was in Sahibabad, closer here. The only water body around here is the Ghazipur Nalla, which transport the drain water of Delhi. And the other in Kamshet in Lonavala, which has got lakes and rivers nearby. So it's a water sufficient area. I'll just share the Sahibabad picture here. You can see that the production related, this is a water scarce area of Sahibabad, and that is the water sufficient area of Kamshet. So we looked at both the macro watershed and the micro watershed where our factory is located. You can see in Sahibabad, the production related consumption of about 1.21 lakh has been more or less compromised by the green piece you find at the end through harvesting of water, about 1.07. So almost 85% plus is kind of compensated. But when you look at ingredients in packaging, the overhead energy, all that, you still have a debit. Suppose I were to put solar energy instead of the grid power, my water footprint will come down by almost 6%. And if I were to convert these glass bottles which you see here are made in this factory, I were to convert them into PET, my water footprint will come down in Sahibabad by 17%. So a lot of people all us are under a misnomer that you move one packaging material to another, problem gets sorted out. No, there is a trade-off. And that's a complex formula. Just to tell you that we have done a very rigorous analysis and evaluation of how the whole thing needs to be factored step by step, evolved after intense debate between Terry Sass and the Bisleri team. And these were the final results. You can see that in Sahibabad, normally for me to make 1 liter of Bisleri, it takes about 1.08 liters of water, if I were just looking at within the fence. But when I put everything together, it takes about 14 liters of water in Sahibabad to make 1 liter of Bisleri. And in Kamshet, it's about 10 liters. And if I were to make a soft drink, it would have costed me 56 liters of water. And that's a true water footprint of a business. And why is that soft drink higher? Because there is sugar and there's a huge amount of surface related water consumption by the sugar cane. And even the gray water footprint is higher because you're using flavoring agents, and that needs to be treated through an effluent plant. So the sum and substance of the study was that contrasting scenarios indicate you require to have, you can't have a uniform thing saying, okay, for Bisleri kind of water kind of business, 10 liter is the benchmark, and you save anything less than 10, you will get rewarded. No, it has to be watershed specific. You have seen that Sahibabad I require 14, and other place I require 10. Beyond the fence, the supply chain is accounting for 91% of the water footprint of our business. And we factor both negatives and positives need to be accounted for. We created an evaluation toolkit which could be used by any organization of any industry. You need to put these numbers, your water footprint will emerge. Except that you need to define your watershed area very clearly, and I think those mechanisms are already there in public domain. So finally, the suggestions from our study, we have made this public. And this is our water credits book, a very detailed book of 181 pages, including every possible water loss across the world. Again, we are a marketing company, so we have kind of illustrated to make it look interesting to read. It's just not a drab scientific journal. It's on our website. Impact adjusted footprint needs to be the principle for water credit. We must define the monetary value. If I save X amount of water, what is the money that I would be able to get, which I can then trade on a platform? And there must be a cap and trade mechanism similar to carbon credit. Financing models may require to be established in the early years. Maybe we require private equity investments or fund to come in and support this initiative. In fact, government could think about water sustainability mark on the product label, which will benefit. If I am actually water sensitive and water prudent, then consumers would love my brand because I am declaring that I am actually good in managing water. Now, the next one is for people like us, the business decisions will have to be based on the water footprint. We have already started thinking about it. What should be my sourcing of plastic? Should I be moving plastic from Jammu to Bombay or from somewhere else? What is the trade-off in terms of water footprint? Where do I set up my plant? What kind of mechanism should I use in terms of my energy movement? And as we speak, in fact, incidentally, what came out of this is a clear understanding that we need to reduce our energy costs. Not cost, energy footprint. And we have now, we were about 4-5% on renewable energy. By December, we will hit 30% of our energy consumption onto renewable energy, which will also bring down dramatically the water footprint of our business. Obviously, once you start anything like this, water credits, there will be smart guys who would play the system. So there needs to be a regulatory mechanism which will hold things in place, prevent exploitation, manage the social impact of something related to this. And finally, agriculture is the biggest consumer of groundwater. If things have to change, I think we need to move into water prudent irrigation crops and water efficient irrigation. So that's what I had to share. Thank you so much for the opportunity once again.